Yoga is
stillness. Yoga is
self-awareness. Yoga is
time-tested. Yoga is
unity. Yoga is
secular. Yoga is
evolution. Yoga is
spiritual. Yoga is
attention, responsibility, and integration. This is Yogascussion.
Well, Gina, we've got Christy Lynn Hicks joining us today for Yogascussion, and Christy's relationship with yoga goes back over 30 years, which is a while. As a practitioner, teacher, studio owner, and educator. She founded and ran a yoga studio and training center in Los Angeles for 15 years, building a big community there and educating hundreds of teachers and practitioners and yoga as this living applied practice, not just a workout, which I appreciate and maybe you appreciate too. And
you know I do.
Yeah. And she now serves as the founder of Elevation Central and the Living Arts Yoga Institute, where yoga is taught as a holistic system for health, clarity, and conscious living. So we're happy to have her on today.
Hi.
Hey, Christy.
Hi, Christy.
How's it going?
It's going good. Thanks for joining us today for a Yogascussion. We've been looking forward to this one.
Me too. I love the name so much.
We appreciate that.
Let's have us a Yogascussion.
I know, right? That's what we're here for. So, I
love it.
Yeah, we've introduced you a little bit to listeners, but if you could maybe just share a little bit about your background and how you came to yoga, what your journey has been like.
Yeah, I sure will. So I grew up in the conservative South in the 70s and a lot of model for anything out of the box. It was very just, you do this and you do this and this is what you do and that's how you do it. and I was always on this I want to do something that I love. I want to do something but I just didn't know what it was. So I just went through the motions of life and went and got a degree. And I was very interested in psychology and sociology. And I started in pre-med. And I thought I really wanted to go that route. And I made a pivot at the very end and went into mass communications, radio, television, photography. And ended up in this career that I don't even know how it happened, but it was very high tech. Very ahead of its time, and I was in a very unhealthy relationship, did not make good healthy choices. I was drinking and smoking and staying up too late and just working way too many hours for way too little pay. But I was a go-getter and I was going to climb that darn ladder. And so I did the thing, and because I was a go-getter and I wanted to do a good job, and I'm a recovering people pleaser like many people I know, and I just wanted to prove myself and try to climb the ladder of some destination. I had no idea where I was going, but I was like, well, you just got to do the thing. But I also, in conjunction with that, I developed very early as a child, like crazy early. Like I looked 25 when I was 13, getting asked out by 36-year-olds as a 13-year-old. That kind of, I just did not look my age. So that overdevelopment and growth really did a number on my back because of the weight. And I was still developing, at 11, I was just really popping off. And so I had major back problems. But I was a dancer and a gymnast, and just, the solution was you take some painkillers and you get out there and you do the thing, and so I'm sure I just continued to damage my back by just pushing through and when I had problems with it. And I remember I was in a very unhappy situation work-wise and relationship-wise, and someone said, have you ever thought about trying yoga? And my brain broke. It was kind of like, why did nobody ever say that? So the next day I looked in the yellow pages because that's what we had.
Good old yellow pages.
And found a yoga studio and went to that yoga studio. And as I was in that first class, it was probably the first time I'd really tuned into me, for a long period of time. And it could have been 90 seconds for all I know, but it felt like a lifetime that I actually was tuned in and I was like, wow. And so I remember laying there in Shavasana, and this was in the early or like 90s, 95. And I remember thinking, I have no idea how this is going to happen. I have no idea because my life is so far from this. But one day I will figure out how to open a yoga studio so that I can get paid to get educated on as much of this as possible. And this could be my life path. And again, my life was nowhere near that. It was a hot mess. And so I started diving into yoga and learning, and my life got worse before it got better because it was the first time I was looking at my responsibility in the whole thing and how much of what I was creating was my own sort of making. But I continued to climb the corporate ladder, and this part's relevant because now it's so clear, but at the time it wasn't. Because I was such a go-getter and do-gooder, working hard, they promoted me a lot. I just kept working my way up and I could figure things out. Even if I didn't know what I was doing, I knew how to figure things out. And I ended up in satellite engineering.
Oh.
Wow. I just am like, what?
Yeah.
What? I know. It's crazy looking at it now because it seems so obvious. But at the time, because there was it was a really high-tech building, way ahead of its time, robotics and sound stages and terabytes of storage, digitizing all these old formats into digital so people could access. And I think, honestly, what I think happened, they're like, well, she's a go-getter. She'll figure it out. We don't have to call her an engineer, but let's put her, she'll carry the pager and she'll be the one to go in at 3 a.m. and feed to CNN and CBS and, take the feeds and send them out. And so I didn't at the time realize, I was in there doing the thing, and they would always be like, okay, whenever you're ready, put the engineer on the phone. And I'm like, well, there's nobody else here. I guess that's me. And I did this for years and just continued to work my way up. We ran like 8 networks out of there. So I just really learned a lot about telecommunications. So then fast forward, starting to learn yoga and learn about the energetic system and the subtle anatomy, I started to see the comparison of like, we are tiny little transmitters, and the signal, if we go up, what I learned in engineering, like if you go up on a signal and you modulate or send out your power or your signal and you're on the wrong frequency, you'll blow everybody off air. And I started to see in subtle anatomy and energetics and the chakra system and like how that all related, and how if we go up and we send out our signal on the wrong frequency, there's a lot of static and a lot of noise and so I continued to do that for many years until I felt really ready within my own self. I knew there was no way I was going to open a yoga studio the way my life was at the time. But I did workshops and trainings. But this was before yoga teacher trainings really became a thing, before Yoga Alliance was even formed. This was back in the 90s, and I did it old school apprentice style with a senior Iyengar teacher, 4 years of apprenticeship and assisting and running her studio when she was out of town and really just learning everything about it. And I went headfirst into all of it. I studied every style I could get my hands on. I just was into it, and it was changing my life slowly, painfully. And I continued to do that. And then finally I was with the father of my son. We're no longer together, but he's a dear friend of mine. And he's like, you light up when you teach. Like, I want to support you in this. I got you. It was no big funding. It was just like, here's a little bit of money to get you started, and you got to make it happen. Like, this is what I can do, and I can help you, by helping you with the rent and things like that. And I was like, okay, great. Opened this little yoga studio in Burbank, California, and it was everything. It was everything to me. It gave me everything I ever even dreamed of, and more than I could even imagine at the time, because I didn't have the capacity to see how good it could be. And it was beautiful, and it was in the middle of LA, Southern girl, and coming along, opening a yoga studio, and they really loved it. The Southern hospitality is a real thing, and we just had a beautiful community, and I got to travel and study with some of the greatest teachers and lead teacher trainings and retreats and workshops and spend time with people I love, hire my friends. And it was just everything. It was literally beyond what I could have imagined. And it did really, really well in such a huge market. Like it had its little sweet spot there and sustained for a very long time until 2020.
So I was thinking of, Christy, is that there's so many parallels with your unique experience with other people's experience. I was picking up on that first Shavasana or an intense period of struggle that kind of pushes someone or guides them to embarking on a journey like that. Would you mind just speaking a little bit about either of those two pieces of your story?
Yeah, for me, not really knowing myself, really, and not knowing, I just looked to always outside of me for the answers. I was always looking for some sort of validation or some sort of inspiration. And there wasn't a lot of people doing anything outside of the box. And so I didn't feel like I had any sort of examples of how to live a creative life and how to live a life that was filled with joy and something I really wanted to be doing. And ultimately, like, I love people. I love people and I love empowering people. Even when I was a boss and working in the corporate, like, I really loved, I was always for the employee, like, and trying to be that bridge between the upper management and the employee. Like, I really was always protective and wanted to help people and wanted to see them shine. And ultimately, I wanted to see myself shine. That
Yeah.
was it. And in doing that, helping other people was helping me to see how much I loved seeing people recognize something in themselves and open themselves up to something greater, because that's what was happening to me. And when I started doing yoga, like I said, my life was a hot mess. I was just still drinking and smoking and a terrible relationship. But it started to give me an insight into a way that I could live differently, in a way that, and, the 8 limbs were really powerful for me to start looking at, like, what are the ways that I am contributing to my suffering? In the
Mm.
Yoga Sutras, it's like the reason we're led to suffering is so that we find a way to lead us out of suffering.
Yeah.
It's this, right? And the catch 22 of that. And I just started to see how I was contributing to my own drama in my life in a lot of ways. And I was the one that was actively participating in the choices I was making. And I really wanted a different life. I wanted out. I felt like I was trapped in this just facade of outward appearances, the good job with the good money and traveling the world and having the nice car and having the nice house and the nice clothes. And I was just drinking myself into oblivion,
Mm.
at night, and just miserable. And so yoga really opened up possibility for me. It was like, for me, I was like, I just want to know as much as I can about this, because it felt like it was like my whole life everyone had been speaking German, and all of a sudden someone spoke French and I was like, I had no idea I spoke French. Like, that was the language of yoga for me. It made sense. And it was like, because I grew up in the conservative Christian South, there was a lot of things that didn't make sense to me. A lot of things, say one thing, do one thing. And so it's confusing as a child, and a fear-based sort of culture.
Mm.
And so yoga was the first time, and at first I got real edgy when the word God came up. I was like, but it really started to, it wasn't like a shaming sort of thing. It was more of a tuning into your own inner wisdom and nature, which just never was presented to me until I started doing yoga. Like, to really start listening to that and clearing out all the noise that had been just bombarded me my whole life.
Mm. 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 Thank you. Thank you.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, your story is very powerful. Like, I have so many thoughts swirling in my head right now, but there's so much about being disconnected from your inner voice or your inner intuition, and cultural messages coming in so quick and so, like, pervasive that it's like the idea that we have to climb somewhere to show our value. And I think you've pretty much said this, but like what I feel like is coming out is that as you explored yoga, you started to come closer and closer into like a self-knowledge. And I was just wondering if you could talk about like how the philosophies, maybe the 8 limbs, or maybe, the yamas and niyamas, or whatever philosophy speaks to you the most, how that kind of started to sneakily, we always say this, kind of sneakily, yoga's so sneaky because you start with just moving your body and then all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I guess I don't really want to smoke those cigarettes, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm not going to go out drinking tonight. But how it started to reshape you, and like what were some of those big moments for you where you were like, boom, this thing I just learned is like blowing open maybe these habits that I've gotten ingrained from my society, or, just feeling like you don't fit and you're like, I want to be something else. And these big moments kind of, can you speak to those or any?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any and all.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remember, I'll never forget this. I was in one of the most miserable corporate jobs. I mean, y'all, I did the craziest stuff. Like it was webcasting, industrial auctioneering, satellites. I was like, how did I end up here? Like I was just this really bright personality that was like, I feel completely disembodied. Every experience I had was just a disembodied, like I was checked out, but just chugging along, doing the thing. And I really started to look at the way I was eating and the food I was eating. And I started to look at the way that I was speaking and the way that I was thinking and the way that I was choosing, and it was almost like I was watching a video game, sort of like play out. And I'm like, well, you did that thing and then then this is the result. And I remember I was in this just wretched corporate job and lying was the thing. That's what you did. Everybody just greed and just manipulation. And it was terrible waking up with anxiety attacks and panic attacks and, just so bad. And I was having major thyroid problems and I was going in to get radioactive iodine poisoning. That was what the solution was. And I remember I was looking in this book. Now, it didn't happen this way, but in my mind, there's not even a window in this office, but the windows part, it opened and like this book flew in through the window and landed in front of me. Like, I don't know how, but it opened up to the page on the throat chakra. And it basically said, if you have these symptoms, there could be a potential of if you weren't allowed to speak up, if you are covering people pleaser, repressing your truth, saying the thing that doesn't rock the boat, not knowing how to say the truth or telling lies to yourself. I was like, oh my God. And then over here, it was like thyroid issues. I was literally looking at this radioactive iodine poison. I had a schedule. It was on the schedule. And I saw lockjaw, which I had dealt with, chronic laryngitis, mono, strep throat, tonsillitis. Smoking, you name it. Every single piece of it was my life. And I was like, the call is coming from inside the house. I just had that awareness that like, I have spent my whole life trying to be the good girl and trying to do the right thing and not rock the boat and not get fired and not do this and get promoted and do the thing, that I've become a liar. I've just become a full-blown liar. And I didn't even know it. It was just trained to like, children should be seen and not heard. Don't question. That is the devil talking, just like things like that. And so I had no idea who I even was and what I was capable of. And so yoga really started in learning about the chakras, and this Yoga Sutras of Patanjali is sort of my main philosophical blueprint for the practice. And I just started to see, the causes of suffering and how I was contributing and how yoga is more preventative and, and then going through the 8 limbs and being truthful and being kind. And how do I learn the balance of that? And how do I learn to enjoy the senses, but also control them? And how do I learn to move my body in a way that's intelligent and not performance based, that is inner wisdom? How do I get my mind from getting all messed up and projecting all kinds of thoughts and ideas and images and out my mouth? How do I get that organized and get it to where it's clear so that I come from a place of truth rather than all the things that I have repressed and covered up and been shown and taught my whole life? So it was like, the more I could learn, the better. I will admit, I got a little addicted to trainings. I got a little bit like, how it is. You get in there and you're like,
happens to the best of us.
I was like, wow, there's so much. The more I learned, the more I realized there was to learn. And that's what I think really drew me too, is because I never felt like that would be an end. It would be a lifelong journey. And that was exciting to me, to have something that I could be just really put my whole everything into.
And there was kind of a shift, Christy, right? Closing the studio after the pandemic, which obviously was hard, and there was kind of this shift. But you had some experiences or maybe lessons from those, if you want to call it like high stakes corporate leadership, days. And then you were deepening your practice. And, you've said that like this idea of success without self-awareness is fragile. And I thought that was really interesting. And especially when you think about it in terms of like that corporate leadership sense or framework. And I'm wondering, like, was there a moment or pattern that made you realize that yoga philosophy itself wasn't just complementary to leadership, but maybe an integral part or essential to it?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, when I decided to leave corporate and open the studio, I made a vow to myself. I was like, if ever the business starts to overrun the yoga, like I wanted to do yoga, but I just happened to have business experience.
Mm,
And I'd been doing yoga. I think it took me from that first class till my doors opened 10 years, up till I opened the doors. But I knew from the beginning, I was like, I'm going to do it a different way. I'm going to because even in the toxic world that I was in, I was doing my best to bring the joy, to bring the, positive attitude, to bring the can do, everybody wins energy. I just didn't have a lot of skill set within myself to organize. But I remember, like, distinctly when I opened this business, if the business ever overruns the yoga and the philosophy that I'm learning, I'm out. Like, I'm not interested in
mm,
doing it the way that I did it that made me so sick, waking up at 5 in the morning just with full blown panic attacks and stress. And I just knew that if business became more important, then I was not going to do it because what was changing my life and making me feel better was the practice of yoga. And in every interaction I was doing, but I did learn a lot of skills in corporate, just the basic how to run a business. That was huge. I also learned a lot about what not to do and how not to treat people and how
sure.
not to, the contrast was really wonderful because I knew how I was going to treat people and I knew that it was never going to be about the bottom line for me and that people would come first and they would be valued and I would do what I said I was going to do. And if I didn't, I would clean up my mess and I would take responsibility and own it and communicate in a way that empowered people instead of made them feel bad. And that was priority number one because I'm like, what's the point of opening a business and based on my passion if it's just going to lead me right back to that place of
Hmm.
stress and like LA is no easy road. It's not a easy place to run a business but I was very determined that and of course I made mistakes and of course there was times where I didn't know what to do but I did my best to clean up those messes and walk with integrity and get right back on track and surround myself with people that I trusted to give me really good reflections and feedback and always choose the road of kindness and honesty, but kindness first, and not blaming people or things like that. Like those were all the things that were so important to me in establishing the business because the word success to me started to look very different. Like success was I wake up excited to go to work. I'm
Mm.
happy to see the people I'm working with. I am, inspired to create, to teach, to lead. I love what I do. I wanted success to be redefined for me. And that was like the foundation of opening the studio. It was like, I want it to have a powerful impact on my life. I want it to pay me to live my life and get educated as much as I can so I could stay ahead of the student base and be of an integrity to be
Mm.
in my practice. And those were the things that were like non negotiables because I was like, I already been to hell. I'm not going back. I'm not going back.
Like that. Yeah, and the yoga of responsibility that we were reading about and how that kind of
Mhm.
rests on a few different pillars. Christy, would you mind talking about that a little bit? Maybe within the context of maybe like some real life scenarios that you've maybe dealt with, either on the business ownership side or any other area of life?
Yeah. So when the pandemic happened and I closed, I have this wellness center now in Tennessee, and it was my childhood home. My dad built it, and it's on 4.5 acres, a creek. It's really beautiful. And I knew that I wanted to have a boutique wellness center out of here because that's what I fell in love with. Like, I loved the classes and the big community, but what I loved was the deep dives at retreats, the teacher trainings, the workshops, the longer format where we have time together. We soak in the hot tub after a meal and discuss or chant or, whatever. I love that piece of it. So I thought I was going to do both and kind of started putting a little energy into here and going back and forth because my family was here and needed help. So I thought I was going to do both. Well, when the pandemic happened and everything shut down, and in 3 months, I was financially ruined.
Mm.
Mm.
And I just was like, I got to get out. And fortunately, they were locked 14 months. So it was devastating to me, though, because it was everything. And it was my business. It was my livelihood. It was my community. Everything was there. And so I went into a really, really deep, dark depression, like just devastating. And what's so wild, and y'all will appreciate this, is knowing all I know about the yoga philosophy and like seeing it unfold in my life of my over-identification with form.
Yeah.
The kleshas, right? Like I was so deeply identified. That was who I was, the studio owner, the teacher, the community, and all of a sudden I was like, I don't have my community. I don't have a class to teach. I don't have a role. I had to let go of so many people that worked for me for like a decade or more. I was 15 years in LA, and some people were there 12, 13, 14, 15 years. Like over 15 people had been with me that long, and I had to lay them all off. And so so now they're jobless too. It was just, and I sank to the bottom. I just sank way down into a dark, dark depression. And of course, the world was falling apart. I wasn't the only one affected. Everybody was affected. And I was just disheartened by the way that people were talking to each other and about each other. And I just went dark and went deep inside. And it was, knowing everything I know almost made it worse because I was like, I have all this knowledge and I'm stuck. And I felt like I was sinking in quicksand. But I started to really look at, and this is where the yoga of responsibility sort of was birthed. I mean, I'd been teaching it that way, but I didn't understand it in the way I did after I lost everything. And to go, wait a minute, like, what am I responsible for? What part of, people judging people or people saying, where am I judging? Like, what am I doing that is contributing it, even if it's this much?
Yeah.
Right? Like there's a part of me, where am I not of integrity in whatever it is, or my thoughts about what's going on? Like I got to get my thoughts right. And so it started to be this healing path for myself, is to really say, well, I've got to take responsibility for everything. And regardless of what's going on out there, there's so much I can't control. And I've got to let that go. And I've got to really do the inner work to go, okay, I'm responsible for every single thought. Like every judgment I have, every word, every, choice I'm making, every single thing that I'm doing. If I've got a problem with something outside, I need to go inside and find out where that's at. Whatever it is that's causing me agitation or fear or anger or judgment or frustration, or the call's coming from inside the house at some point, like I've got to. And so it was like I regressed a little bit back into before I even discovered yoga almost. But I had all this knowledge, which was almost worse, And so I really had to do some churning on, well, I've got to get up and take responsibility for how I'm showing up in every situation, and if I'm in conflict with someone, what is inside me that's creating that? What part of me is causing, and that's where the responsibility came from, is being able to really direct my attention towards exactly what I want without any interaction or noise from the outside, and to be able to hold that attention and to be able to regulate myself in conversation and to be able to be completely relaxed and the sthira-sukha, the steady and relaxed in every posture. So I practice it on the mat so that when I'm in a difficult situation and faced with something, I can maintain a posture that's steady and relaxed in my face, in the ways I'm speaking, in my heart, and not just saying the words, but like I need to feel completely steady and relaxed in this interaction. And until I do, I got work to do. I got to go handle that. Like it's on me. And not putting the responsibility on someone else to need to do something for me to make me feel good or safe or whatever it is. Like that's not, I need to take care of that. And so that's where it was really born from as a framework. Even though I'd been practicing it in ways and teaching in ways, it really became this concept of like, I got to take full responsibility for every single part of my life that I can possibly. And then, of course, there's always going to be chaos and asteroids. There's always going to be some kind of, right? But if I'm really taking full ownership of my life and directing my attention and regulating myself and, owning my part, then things start to rearrange around me in accordance with that. And that's where that comes from.
That's so Jungian, you know? I mean, it's like what you don't uncover within yourself will just keep rising to the surface, and you'll keep doing these things, and you'll have not really a reason why until you go down into the unconscious and, you know, get in there and kind of look around and go, what's this? I mean, that's like so, I just want to say that's really metal. Like, you're super badass.
Thank you.
To just like sit down and be like, okay, everything is inside, and if I don't take responsibility for every single thought or judgment I have, then I mean that's like hardcore. That's really hardcore. I'm just kind of like blown away by that.
But it's the only thing that got me out, like, of the darkness. It's like, this is me. There is something in me, and whatever judgment I have, I got to find it. Where is it? What am I doing that I'm judging? You know, where is it? And it's not work for the faint of heart, I will say, you know, but it helped me heal. It helped me to say, and, you know, to not really link, you know, yoga, the detachment, the vairagya is the, you know, the delinking, to be able to detach. And to detach from thoughts about what other people were thinking or whatever it was, to really delink from the external and to be able to continue to go, there's something in me that I've got to resolve. There's something going on in here, because I wouldn't be feeling that if there wasn't, you know? And it definitely was not easy, I will say.
No.
And it's confronting as can be, but I'm willing to do it because I know that my lane is to help people find their lane. And if I can't find my lane, then I'm going to have a hard time helping other people find their lane.
I'm super curious how this plays out in like a boardroom, because, you know, we went to your website and read everything, and it's like, how do people react to this when you show up and you're like, I'm going to, like, first of all, how do you do this? Like, how do you go to a bunch, like cold call? You're going to a bunch of like business people and being like, hey, I'm going to teach you the yoga of responsibility. And then second part of the question is like, how do they react? Like, I'm so curious.
Well, if those satellite engineers, you know, you just give them a call.
Yeah. Hey, your signal is staticky. Yeah. So a lot of the work I do comes from referrals because people know how I am. And I always, because one, humor is necessary, like the humor piece. And I come from the South. And so there's something about some good old fashioned, you know, redneck wisdom, Southern values that just, I always say that the thing I do first is I get them in the gitchy goo. You know, once I get them in the gitchy goo, I got them, you know, because it is funny. The whole thing to me, and sad and devastating and painful all at the same time. But to be able to present something in a way that's super down to earth and super just grounded in humor, but also when I'm taking responsibility and not pointing the finger outward and showing how it plays out in my life, people respond to it. And two, because I do my very best. I'm so dedicated. Practice every day. I have to. I mean, I'm one of those that will slip real quick if I don't stay on track, you know, and I know that. I've got a big personality. I've got a lot of energy. And if I don't manage it, it goes willy-nilly. You know, so that's a big part of it too, is they feel it. They feel that there's no BS. There's not this sort of everything's kumbaya and everything's perfect. But, you know, the first thing I start asking them, you know, is questions. And then if they say, well, our employees are late, and I'm like, how often are you late?
That's very Terrence Real of you. He's a therapist, and he's always like, okay, so if you have a problem, let's ask ourselves, how often do you do that? And it's like,
how often do you do that?
Beautiful.
And just with even like with interrupting or passing the buck and like, you know, whatever it may be, the question is always like, okay, let's look at your life. Like, how does your morning look? And because if you come in dysregulated as someone who's leading people, people will feel they're looking to you and they feel it no matter what you're saying. They feel it. So if you come in jacked up on coffee, you get on your phone the first thing when you wake up, you don't do any sort of cleaning of the internal pipe system or satellite transmitter, you don't clear out the signal, and you come in, they are going to respond. And because you're in a leadership role and a position of power, it is your responsibility to be the most regulated person in the room. And if you're not doing that, we got to start there. And we've also got to start getting really clear on concrete, specific actions. because a lot of people live in the abstract. And I'm sure y'all know in the yoga world, it's rampant too. Abstractions and words that people think mean something, but if you bring it down into the concrete, we're actually talking about two different things, you know? And so I work with them a lot on language and posture and breath and how, you know, the way that they're speaking, the way that they're allowing others to speak. So we do a lot of these practices and work and you know, I ask them like, okay, I see some tension forming. What's going on in your mind right now? Like, it's cool. I can take it. Like, I'm fine. You know, like, tell me what's going on. What judgment are you having? It's okay. You can judge me. What? Because I have a piercing. Like, is that cool? Like, you know, and I really try to make it very relatable and human. And because I did grow up in the South and I have these like really, you know, Southern hospitality roots. And my dad was like, to me, he's the only hero. I mean, it's really hard. There's a lot of people I'm inspired by. There's a lot of people that have made an impact on my life. But to be impressed, he made the most powerful impression on me by not saying, by doing. And watching that, like I feel like it gives me a lot of grounded confidence because for him, he was just very much like complaining. No, can you do something about it? If not, I don't want to hear it. And no one else does either. Handle it or stop it, you know, do something different. And so when I bring that into people in that world, because I was in the corporate and because I've run my own business for 20 years, it's not just theory, it's lived practice. And I'm around a lot of people and I'm an observer and I'm always watching and asking questions, but I do it in a funny way. And humor just is sort of the great equalizer. Once you get them laughing, I got them. I'm like, all right, got them, you know? And so they take to it really well. But like I said, I get referred to a lot of people that know my work and they're like, you got to meet Christy, you know, like, so that's how it usually, I don't usually cold call into some random corporation. It's usually referral based that people are wanting it. They're more of a conscious, you know, businesses that are looking to have a wellness culture within. And they need some tweaks because it's not quite going the way they want. So that tends to be the work that I lean into more because I'm not trying to force anybody. Like I want them to want it just as much as I want to help them, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's a really great place right now, like in time, like in the timeline of how we are as human beings, the work you're doing, because I think people want their work to be meaningful. Whether you work for a communication satellite company or, you know, like a federal agency or, you know, you're selling kombucha out of the back of your car. I think people want to be like, they want meaning in their jobs.
Agreed.
And they want to be seen as humans and not cogs. And I think this is what your work is doing. But it's starting from, I sometimes think that revolutions in these kind of ways start from the bottom up, but you're kind of going top down, right? It's like leadership has to show up in a way that's real leadership in order for everyone below to kind of be like, oh, you know?
Yeah, because what we want is for people to be inspired to do a good job, not browbeat into it and not feared into it. Because the thing is that like, if the top levels in leadership take responsibility for the way that they're showing up and communicating and the way that they are thinking even and the way that they are taking care of themselves, people, they won't have to beg and plead for someone or they won't have to have all these weird negative interactions. People will be inspired and want to do a good job. They'll want to show up because they feel that that person is a true representation of leadership. And so until people start to see that what every single thing they're doing, whether it's spoken or not, people feel it and are observing it and are taking it on, you know, and a lot of times people are afraid to speak up or whatever. And for me, when I was a manager, I'm like, come, let's talk about it. Like, don't be afraid to speak up, you know, and I was always willing to sort of stand up and say, hold on, I'm calling BS on this. Like, this is not, you know, exactly the most helpful thing for everyone involved here. Like, aren't we on the same team? Like, aren't we going for the same goal here? And so why wouldn't we want it to feel better? We spend 40 hours or more a week at a job. Like, why not make it the most positive environment that we can in every way? And you'll see that the numbers will be a representation of that. It's not the other way around. Fear is not a motivator.
Yeah.
Yeah, and picking up on what both of you were saying, I was thinking that is this related to something that's happening in the current times? In my mind, it seems like there's somewhat of a corporate squeeze happening, right? So for the people who are in executive roles, maybe managerial roles, maybe in like the upper echelons of an organization, maybe they're feeling particularly squeezed, right now. And I'm wondering if that's energetically related, to why there's a little bit more of a, what word would you use? Interest, thirst, hunger for this type of work. Do you have a take on that, Christy?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are starting to go, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. Like, there is just hot mess after hot mess floating around out there. As a culture, as a society, as a people, we tend to look at like everything that's wrong and everything that everyone's doing that's, not good. And it's like, okay, but what am I doing that is not in alignment? Like, and so often, unfortunately, people will say they want something, but their actions aren't a reflection of that. And we have more knowledge than we could ever want at our fingertips within seconds. And it's very much like the Vedas, there was all the knowledge we could ever want, and people were still suffering. And then the Darshanas came down, and the sages that codified the Darshanas, it was like, well, people are still suffering, even with all this information. And we're in that same place, is that we have all this insight, we have all this knowledge, but wisdom has taken a back seat. People are on the fast track, and wisdom is lived experience. And, we are committing crimes against wisdom every day. People know better and they don't do better. And so that's causing this sort of like squeeze of people are saying, here's all the things I value. And if I go to their house, I'll be like, don't look like it. Don't look like you value any of that. So talking about it causes a misalignment, and it's literally like a signal that's being like completely distorted within their own being. And so people are feeling that pressure and feeling that need. There's got to be a better way. This can't be the end. This can't be the goal of us to just keep grinding and churning and, compromising our values. And every time we do that, we suffer. Whether it's overt or invertly, like we're suffering because it's not a clear channel for us to be able to express our spirit or the Purusha to be able to express itself in the world. It's like all these different things are happening, and everybody wants to point, well, who's the problem? And it's like, well, how about I start here, because I'm the one that's been here the whole time. I'm the only one that I should trust myself more than anyone, because I'm the only one that's seen me through this whole journey. So if I could, do that, it can take the pressure off of everybody else needing to fix themselves for me to feel good. And so I think people are looking, and I think wellness is starting to be a part that people are realizing that we can't have a healthy business without healthy people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have observed, I believe, and I was thinking when you were talking about this idea of, what we don't really need in modern times is more information. What we need is to kind of integrate what we know to be true on a deep level, or what we're aware of. And so, you've trained, hundreds of instructors. Like, Christy, like, what's one practical way that listeners could maybe move from knowing a yogic principle to maybe embodying one or living one when things get stressful?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, and the thing that I feel like is the answer for me every time, is they have to practice doing the thing they say is valuable consistently, without interruption, with enthusiasm and a conviction. It's a sutra that says that. Like, we have to, instead of knowing something, we have to integrate. And that is through, so for example, if we say that, healthy eating is important to us, then we need to start practicing cooking healthy meals, home cooked meals where we sit down, there's no screens, there's no television, light conversation only, no intense conversation about the ways of the world, maybe a conversation about how delicious this food is and how grateful we are that we get to eat this. And wow, thank you for helping me cook it. And because we're not digesting our experiences, and that comes with slowing down. It's like, all the problems with IBS and all the problems with the stomach and digestion and GI like problems, is people are putting all their energy out when they're doing a simple thing like eating. Instead of it being an inconvenience, it's the thing that fuels us. And the mind, as y'all know, it can do a lot of things, but it does the best when it's one pointed focus. And so that ekagrata, like being able to focus the mind on one thing at a time, is how we can take information in, process it, and eliminate it, what we don't need, and take in the nutrients, whether it's a physical experience or an emotional experience or a spiritual experience. But everyone's just shoving so much up in the head, and then it's getting all congested and confused and different images. And people aren't able to pull it down into a simple sit down, have a meal, turn your phone off, talk a light conversation, chew your food. So getting good at and in the corporate, multitasking is like the big thing, multitasker. Well, what I understand and what I have come to really know in my own practice is that one thing at a time is way better. That we are more complete, we're more absorbed with that thing. We have more of an experience of knowing of what it is rather than all these different things. So practicing slowing down and doing the one thing you're doing with your whole everything. And giving yourself a chance to really see the value of what it is that's right in front of you. And that's one of the things that I usually start with people. If you are not sitting down and having a home cooked meal like at least 2 or 3 times a week, start with once a week. One time where I light the candles, make it beautiful, make it a sacred act, because your mind will always prioritize what you give your attention to over the automatic functions. It will always give its attention to what you put it towards. So if you put it towards an email or a phone or a computer or whatever, it's going to go, that's more important, shut down digestion. Have y'all read Why Zebras Don't Get Ulcers?
No,
No,
I'm
that's
gonna
a
add
new
it to
one
my
for
list.
me.
Well, and it talks about that is that if we are putting our attention towards something other than what we're doing, that's disembodiment. And when we do that, all the other systems go, oh, shut down because there's an emergency here. But with a zebra, when they get chased, they eliminate immediately. All the circulations, goes up to the heart to help them run. And they do the thing. And then when they're back, they calm down and everything goes back online, right? Because there's no need to digest your food if you're about to get eaten, right? But we're doing that all day long. So it's like stress isn't the problem. It's the lack of recovery and the overload of information that's just telling everything to be on high alert. So all the systems and circulation and digestion and everything starts to shut down because it's like, okay, we're under threat. And so slowing down and choosing to go, all right, for the next 30 minutes, I'm going to do this one thing. And if I have to tell myself 5,000 times to come back to the one thing I'm doing, I'm going to do it. To put a timer on, and just even if it's like, okay, I drifted again. Okay, I drifted again. Okay, I drifted. Okay, I'm here. I am washing a dish. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But that's mindfulness is really sort of starting to be aware of how we disembody. We think about something else while we're doing something else. And that's the definition of it, right? Is that we're out of our body and we're not integrated. The mind does so good when it's aligned with the action that we're taking. And it's much more of a peaceful experience inside and outside.
I'm taking notes, Christy and Gina. In addition to being more like a sloth, be more like a zebra.
Be like a zebra.
I like this. I'm always looking to the animal world for guidance
Yeah.
and knowledge because I do think that we are animals. We have the nervous system of an animal. I mean, we have a lizard brain. We've got more than just a lizard brain, but like at the base, and I have to remind myself that nature is a powerful teacher.
Yes.
Because we live in systems that are trying to divorce us from nature all the time. Like we live in systems that are trying to harm us, trying to grind us to bits, in terms of productivity. And like, oh man, I don't know if you guys have read that book, 4,000 Weeks by, I can't remember his name.
I haven't read it.
It's really great, but basically you only get 4,000 weeks. Like that's what a human lifespan consists of. And like, that doesn't sound like much time, right? And so
No.
The premise of the book, which is also based in mindfulness, is to like focus what you want to spend your 4,000 weeks on.
Yeah.
And I think that we And the guy is very into productivity he used to be into productivity hacks, and he was like, I was always trying to be more productive. And what I realized was I just like destroyed my attention span because I was trying to hack my way out of a nervous system that is animal and hack my way into a system that was just seeking to grind me down by being more productive. And that's like not what we need. We need less, not that we need less productivity, but it's like the more focused you are, the more single-minded you are, the greater the product that comes out.
That's right. And the greater you feel too, yeah.
Yeah, whether that product is being in relationship with someone, whether that's raising a child or processing paperwork, or, we all have roles that we play in society, in our jobs and our many relationships, but it's like the more pointed and connected and present you are, the better everything is.
That's right. That's right. And that was another tip. I was going to say a non-negotiable for me is time in nature every single day, like every single day. Go outside, put your feet on the ground, like get outside, take a walk, sit on the grass, like whatever it is. That's such an important piece to what you were talking about, Gina, is that we are from nature. We're children of nature. And when we get back there, it's the great equalizer for our nervous system. And so many people spend so much time indoors and just grinding and in cars and jacking up on coffee and things like that when we have the natural elements to support so much of our healing. And so being in nature, to me, like first thing in the morning, the first thing I do is go put my feet on the ground. Doesn't matter how cold it is, doesn't matter, whatever. If it's raining, doesn't matter. I'll just get out there and get wet. I can take a hot shower. It doesn't matter. Like something to connect me to the thing that is continuing to regenerate every single year, despite humans' attempts to make sure that doesn't happen. It continues to blossom, and we can connect to that energy that is always regenerating and really get ourselves in alignment with that power, being in the sunlight and getting that information first thing before we start. Like it's such a huge part of my practice is outdoors, outdoors, outdoors as much as possible.
Yeah. I'm thinking about our listeners who maybe live in, urban areas, but we still, there are a lot of trees interspersed, even just touching a tree or just sitting outside and listening to the birds. Like there's so many birds that live in cities and urban areas that we aren't really tuned into because we're not looking, we're not paying attention.
And the sun, the sun still shines.
The sun.
Even in an urban area.
We are solar creatures. Like
we
are the
solar creatures.
Original solar panels.
Yes, that's right. No, I totally agree. And so even if it's just walking in a very industrial area, you're still outside. You're still getting the sun. Like it doesn't have to be grass and trees. And even if you're in an apartment, like get outside, walk. Just get out there and let the sun, rejuvenate you.
Yeah, I was gonna make a joke about petting pigeons in New York City, but I've also experienced the wonderful observational moments of feeding pigeons on a rooftop in Bangalore, India, and how when me and my father-in-law will go up, and we'll lay out some bird seed and rice just like in the middle of the roof, and we can already kind of see, because creatures of habit, right? So there's already maybe a few pigeons who have perched like at adjacent buildings or whatever, and they're watching us. They're like, it's time, but they won't come down like if we're hanging out right there. So we just kind of move over, and I eventually learned that they didn't need me to completely disappear if I was willing to go a little bit further away and just sit still for a period of time. They eventually kind of started trusting that. And then just them coming down and doing their own thing, that's observing nature, even within an urban environment. So thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Absolutely. It can be done anywhere, get outside. And yes, that's perfect. Like I love nature meditation, just observing, just watching and seeing how they do things and getting out of your own drama for a moment to see, what's happening outside. And
even just watching bugs. Bugs are everywhere. I'm telling you, but like watching an ant move a stick back to wherever it's going, it's absolutely absorbing. And for a moment, you become the ant. Like you are back into that mindset of like, oh, I am part of nature. Like I understand this in some very deep way.
Yeah, I guess I have one last question for you, Christy. So, what I was really touched by is that you're passionate about like preserving yoga's integrity while
Mhm.
still kind of understanding that, it's always been evolving and we're trying to apply it to, modern understandings, modern audiences. But, you did kind of see the importance of thinking of yoga beyond like performance or something that's about a
Mhm.
perfect
Mhm.
form, the commodification of yoga. I appreciated you acknowledging that. Like, is there any classical teaching that resonates with you that you think is maybe a little bit more misunderstood in Western minds or audiences?
I think that a lot, well, I'll just start from where I'm at, which is in the South. And a lot of people don't understand the context of yoga as its own darshana. And that is separate from Vedanta, which is the Hinduism and the Buddhism and
Hmm.
the Tantra.
Hmm.
And a lot of people won't practice yoga because they think it's Hinduism. And look, I've blended all of it. My yoga studio was called Yoga Blend. I blended everything, but I knew I was doing it, like that I could educate people on that. But I think a lot of people are turned off by because they think it's like a religion, like a lot of people, particularly in the South. And it's like, well, the way that I've learned it, again, we all have different teachers and different paths and different, lineages that we've studied. But yoga is its own darshana that offers God as a super tool. It offers it as, there's 6 sutras about it that offer it as, a really deep, powerful tool for bringing us back to wholeness. But it also offers faith in yourself, and all that you've overcome to get here. Like we're living proof that we'll overcome everything that's come our way because we've overcome everything that's ever been our way. So that means it'll always happen because it's always been true. And, to really relate it in that way of you don't have to believe anything specifically, but tune into your own knowing and your own beliefs. And that's why I love the Yoga Sutra specifically because it offers tools. It's very tool based
Mm.
and psychology driven. And the Sankhya philosophy doesn't really say one way or the other. It just says, here's how it is. And yoga's like, and here's what you can do about it, like, and I think a lot of people don't understand that differentiation and they think it's either a religion or it's a workout. Some of the things, and y'all know, I mean, y'all been doing it too, like, going into a class and there's like bass music playing. I'm like, "Yo, what is happening?" So that turns off people too that are looking for more of a quieter internal sort of practice. They think it's performance based and everybody puts things on the internet and whatever it'll be, it'll be. But I think it just really discourages people from giving it a try, whether they think it's a religion or they think it's a fitness that you have to wear certain outfits and perform poses and play really loud, obnoxious music. There's, I think that there's a place for people that don't have to believe anything. They just want to feel more whole.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Yeah.
And then they can decide what's important to them. And they can decide how they want to live their life and how they want to take responsibility for the world that they're creating and really care for the things that are right in front of them. It's like the best way to show people you care is you act like it. And so yoga can teach you to really care for your whole system in a way. And then you naturally want to extend that out to everyone around you because you realize that if you're not here, what's the point? So I should start here, taking care of this. And then a natural effect of that will be to care for others. So it's not selfish.
Yeah, I appreciated that answer, Christy. And, I love this, analogy of a river. Yoga is river and, hop in whatever canoe or kayak you really want, have whatever style of stroke, you want. But there's a lot to be gained from getting in the river at some point,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I really
Yep.
appreciated that answer. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
It was a beautiful answer. And I was in the river, I was like,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I just want to say how grateful I am to have this conversation and get to know you and get to like receive your experience and yeah, it's been very profound.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much. I love it. I love talking about it and I love talking about people who are interested in it. So thank you.
Yeah.
Our last question is, what 3 words would you use to say what yoga means to you?
Attention, responsibility, and integration.
Mm.
I like
Nice.
those. Yeah.
Yeah, like that, Christy. Well, thanks for joining us for a Yogascussion, Christy. We really loved having you.
It's
My
awesome.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. I love what y'all are doing, and I'm happy to be a part of it.
Yeah. Hey, listener. Yeah, you. I'm talking to you, actually. If you've been enjoying the show, please consider leaving us a review on your podcast listening platform or giving us a shout out at yogascussion@podmasana.com. Or you can also reach out on the socials. We're on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Instagram, and YouTube. Sharing a review with others helps a lot. Thanks for listening and leaving a review.